So, thank you for joining me at this session here. As Almar said, my name is Helgi and I'm working for a company called Marorka. And we are developing energy performance management systems for ships. And the idea here for this session was to take you through the kind of process of collecting, storing, treating data, and creating value for the customer by using the operational data. Just quickly in the beginning, for those of you who do not know the company, Marorka was established in 2002 in Reykjavik, where we currently have our head offices, and started out working with fishing vessels in Iceland, mapping out their energy processes and trying to optimize their operation. And since then we've expanded to a more global scale where our customers are more internationally based. And as a result of that, we have expanded our offices to other locations. We have offices in Copenhagen, Hamburg, Singapore, Dubai, and some activity in Shanghai and Busan. During the time of operation, Marorka has produced and delivered over 600 energy performance systems worldwide. So that was just a quick overview. So I guess the first question is, why should we focus on energy management in ships at all? If we were talking about cars, everybody could relate. It's a lot of consumption of fuel and pollution. So that's the idea, to reduce both of them. Luckily for us, they go hand in hand. It's interesting to note that there are around 70,000 ships worldwide, and they account for around 90% of global trade and stand for around 3% of global CO2 emissions. So this is kind of a internationally big task to reduce that. Just to give you a rough idea of numbers, I looked up the number of cars in the Icelandic fleet of cars. It counts around 200,000 vehicles. And assuming normal distance per year, 15,000 kilometers, consumption rate of 8 liters per 100 kilometers, we end up with around 500 tons of fuel consumed every day by the fleet, which is around 1,600 tons of CO2 every day. As a comparison, I went into our Marorka online system, where we have over 300 ships connected, delivering data every day. And in that system that day I looked, the daily consumption rate for the fleet was around 10,000 metric tons of heavy fuel oil. Converting that to tons CO2 results in 32,000 metric tons per day, which is 20 times the amount of CO2 the entire fleet of cars in Iceland produces. So efficiently, or effectively, if we can save around 5% fuel consumption in the Marorka fleet, we've compensated for the entire fleet of cars in Iceland. Just to keep that in mind. So if we want to address these performance issues or fuel consumption, we want to reduce fuel consumption, we have to be able to measure it to be able to improve it. So how would you go about that? Well, the first thing is to maybe track your fuel consumption and your distance traveled. That would be the first step. So a research group in the University College of London sent out a questionnaire to a lot of ship operators and owners, published the results 2 years ago, where they asked them just, are you monitoring your fuel consumption? As a first step. It was done by over 92% of the companies, whereas 63% of those are relying on manual reported data, which is basically snapshots every day entered by the crew members. So these are error prone in the sense that they can vary with the crew being, there can be variations between crew members, how they document stuff, the timeliness of the reporting, and a range of human mistakes during the reporting process. Some of these errors can be reduced by processes, training, guidelines, cross-checking, so on and so forth. but there are always going to be a source of error in these kind of documentation. The alternative is to have some sort of automatic data collection from sensors and other systems aboard the vessel. In that same questionnaire, around a third of the companies asked were doing some sort of automatic continuous monitoring and sending data to shore. It's more expensive to set up, but less expensive in manual effort every day for the crew. And the benefits of this, clearly more real-time monitoring on shore, and as a result, more real-time feedback to the ship. But you're always going to have some problems. In this case, sensor bias, some loss of signals, and so on. So it would make sense to combine these sources, both the manual reports that we have and the automatic continuous monitoring. And you can also add a source of external data, like corrected weather data, static ocean depth maps, and so on and so forth. So if we want to get the full picture of the energy flow of the vessel and effectively attack the energy performance issues, you would have to monitor all of the kind of energy consumers and keep track of your inventory on board the vessel. So that means that you have to be aware of the speed profile of the vessel. You need to know the bunker inventory, or basically the status of your fuel tanks. You have to monitor the prime mover details, so how much power is being sent to the propeller for propelling the ship forwards. The performance of the propeller and the performance of the hull, basically, is it dirty or fouled? Is it in good shape? And there's also other consumers, like auxiliary engines that produce electricity for the crew and for the basic electricity needs on board the vessel, and boilers that produce steam for heating, and so on and so forth. So you need to map all of these, but the problem is, especially in older vessels, that you don't always have all the sensors needed to generate this map. So sometimes it's kind of a guessing game. So how do we approach the problem? Well, we are firm believers in using full resolution operational data to address these questions. So our product reflects that. We develop software and ship the hardware needed to run that to the ships. So that's includes server machines, displays, even motion sensors. So since we are at the data track, the idea was to give an overview of the data flow in the system, how we collect the data, store it, and make use of it. So just an overview for the system that's on board the vessel. We collect signals in a few places around the vessel, in the bridge, in the engine control room, so on. By using these kind of data acquisition units, which I'll explain in more detail later. Their role is basically to collect the signals and send them over to the server, where the data is logged in the database, treated for basic data quality, filtering, and some computation and optimization there takes place. And then it's sent to the visualization tools. I mean, we have a ship performance monitor, which is basically a touchscreen, and onboard client, where we visualize weather data, measured data, optimized operation as a decision support for the crew, and can receive these manual reported data from the crew as well as from the client. Yep, let's see. So if I go like component-wise through this map, during the data acquisition we have to connect to a range of both sensors and systems from different vendors with different protocols that we need to understand. So as a an example, NMEA, which is a standard for nautical signals, usually get these from the bridge. It's speed, heading, so on and so forth for the vessel. Modbus, industrial protocol, often used by alarm systems or these kind of information we extract from. But we also receive pulses or analog signals like plus minus 10 volts, 4 to 20 milliamperes. And at times we do some pre-calculation in the acquisition box of these pulses to translate them into the signals that we want to collect in the server. This, especially initially with Marika, this was a heavy project to build up a library of these protocols, supporting them. That kind of need has maybe reduced a bit now because we are closing into a single entry point for data sources. I mean, at times we're dealing with systems that can provide us with all the signals that we need, more or less, but this is still an active component in the ships for at least 90% of the ships. And when the signals have been collected, they're sent to the server machine, where it's logged in the database every 15 seconds. And we have some basic data quality checks in the server, like spike filters, timeout for some of the sensors, like frozen signals and so on. But in the server machine, we also have a range of computations being done. In the database, we do some derived calculations for some of the signals for visualization purposes or as inputs for the optimization routines. We have predictive models that predict the operation of the vessel for a given set of circumstances. And we have a range of optimization algorithms that can provide the decision support for the crew, how they should be operating the vessel if they want to save fuel for optimum results. When we have all of that in place, the kind of entry point for the crew members to our system is through the client, where we do visualize the sensor data, derived data, and the information from the decision board. And as I said before, can enter the manual reports as well in the client. We also receive weather information every day, weather forecasts, which are then passed in the server machine and visualized in the client. Yeah. So when I neglected to mention in the previous slide on the onboard data flow that we aggregate the data from the sensors and systems to a 15-minute packages. So every 15 minutes we send a package to shore, and that is received in our onshore data warehouse, where we have some processing of the data packages. We do some data quality checks. We do some normalization of the data and time synchronization. We populate database views for both the website and the REST API using OBData protocol or OData for the users to connect with their BI tools. And there are some analysis being run in the onshore database as well for applications for the website. The website itself is then the access point for the onshore-based personnel for our clients, where we display these data quality indicators. We display voyage details or details about the trip that the vessel has undertaken, time series data, performance indicators for the vessel. We have a data analysis dashboard where the user can do some rough data analysis for the vessels. And we also have a range of fleet management tools where you can compare sister vessels or vessels in the same class. Visualize the potential savings from the decision support tools on board the vessel. So how much could the crew members be saving if they would have followed the advice on board the ship? And some fuel balancing tools as well. Yeah, let's see now. Our clients or customers are not the only users of the OData API. We also use that in-house to generate data-driven models, which are then being used in our applications on board the ship and in the online website. So basically what we do, call the data from the OData API, we are using more or less Python in-house. Some of the people in Arctic are using R, but for the most part we're using Python, at least for the tuning of the models. So then we use the operations data in combination with some weather observations. We use well-known like marine engineering relations, information about the ship itself, and a range of statistical models, machine learning, to provide us with predictive ship-specific models. This tuning process here is, at the moment, quite manually heavy, and especially with the data cleaning of each vessel. So we are moving that towards a more centralized, semi-automated platform for the generation of these models, both the data cleaning and the generation of the models. But when the tuning has been done, we get something like this. This is a model where we, for a given speed through water and external conditions, we can predict the power requirement to reach this speed for the vessel. When we have these kind of models, we update the model configuration in the ship, or this is done during commissioning as well in some cases. So when we have moved to this more centralized platform of generating the models, these kind of updating of model coefficients can be more rapid and more automatic and can be served through a REST API as well. So the applications on board the vessel that use the data-driven models, first one, speed profile optimization. So for a given voyage or route for the ship, you know the path. This is from England to Suez Canal. You know the expected time of arrival. And from the weather forecast, you know the weather conditions along the way and the ocean currents. You would have to know the loading condition of the vessel, which is entered in the client here. And you have the predictive models that we supply and the optimization algorithms. And we optimize the speed of the vessel for this route with the lowest fuel consumption in mind. That gives us the optimized speed and the associated propeller RPM. So essentially, this is what the crew is controlling on board the vessel. They set an RPM for the propeller. This can, in extreme cases, be saving fuel consumption in the range of what we've documented, 2 to 6% fuel savings. I think that's a number that I've seen in our documentation from case studies. We also have other models to optimize operation. One of those is TRIM model. Basically, it's an entirely data-driven model where we, for a given speed and loading condition of the vessel. We can determine the optimal trim or inclination of the vessel, if you will. So basically, how the vessel will be producing these kind of waves for least resistance. And we can indicate directly what the expected fuel consumption savings will be to the crew members on board, so they can react to that information. We also have balancing of the auxiliary engines. So to meet a certain power load in the electrical system, you can produce electricity with the diesel generators. You may have three, ranging from 2 to 5 different sets of diesel generators. So the idea here is to find the optimal load distribution for these set of diesel generators. And if there is room for improvement, we can highlight the potential savings by adjusting the load distribution. And as an addition, we can, this is not actually part of our solution at the moment, but we are discussing of adding it, but kind of reduce the maintenance cost by including the running hours of each generator set as well. And the last part is basically an application that is in our online interface for the onshore personnel to look into. If we look at a time series for a vessel, we can, by analyzing the performance, estimate if there's a potential fouling on the vessel. That means surface growth, algae, barnacles. So we can estimate an overconsumption due to those effects, and instruct the onshore personnel to plan cleaning events accordingly. Maybe send in divers, pull the vessel out of the waters for a dry dock for a full cleaning, and so on and so forth. Don't know how I'm doing on time, but this was the overview of the data flow and the value we can create from the data on board the vessel. But we have now stumbled upon some problems, or at least interesting problems that we want to solve. With an increasing number of vessels in our system, increasing number of tags or sensor values that we want to be logging, and an increased frequency of these values, we've run into some scalability issues on our onshore database. So, and I mentioned also the production of the data-driven models as well. So these kind of problems have triggered a project that we are moving towards a more flexible, more scalable platform for the onshore data infrastructure. So, which essentially means that we will be moving that to a Amazon Web Service, and essentially the picture from the onboard will remain roughly the same, but once the packages have been sent to shore, they're received by this Kinesis, Amazon Kinesis, which is basically a queuing tool and a hub. That would throw the packages into a blob storage and to a streaming layer, where real-time computations can be, or evaluations of the data packages can be performed, using information from this more centralized modeling platform, where we have done all the model tuning and the information about each model for each ship stored. And we can also, and that will be then pushed to the onshore database. We could also take out data sets from the bucket, run it through a batch streaming layer, or batch layer for maybe repopulating some of the database tables, or even just performing analyses straight from the bucket. The database itself would be, at least in the beginning, somewhat similar to what we have already. Same kind of views for the online website, but we're adding a service which is kind of a fleet performance overview service for customers. and that kind of allows us to use those capabilities of real-time alerting from the infrastructure that I mentioned before to highlight directly if some part of the operation is not optimal or something is strange. We can monitor the ships in real time and make these kind of alerts to the crew members. Also gives us the opportunity to more actively monitor our own systems out there. So direct feedback to our development as well. So this is kind of the material that I prepared for today. These are ongoing projects, and we have a lot of things to do, and could always use more help. So if you're interested in these kind of questions and topics, please contact us. But otherwise, that was it for me. So if there are any questions. At the moment, we are, for the most part, using support vector regression for one of the models that we use. Then we've played around with a bunch of different types of machine learning, but the main problem there is that we want to be able to constrain our solution, so we cannot really go for these black box kind of models right out of the bat, if you know what I'm getting at. So neural networks and stuff like that, it's kind of hard for us to work with because we cannot constrain it as much as we would like to. No, okay, okay, I understand. Yeah, what we're doing, we're basically using scikit-learn in Python. Scikit-learn in Python. That's what we're using. No, that one is kind of just in the beginning phases, so we haven't really implemented that architecture yet. But we're going to be using, well, it's basically Python behind the scenes, really. Our lead specialist is there in the audience. You can grill his mind later. Yeah. Any more questions? At the back there. Yeah. That's actually a good question. What we've done so far is just to give an optimal speed profile. So if you have a 10-day voyage, you'll get a speed profile that fluctuates with the ocean currents or the weather conditions and so on. So you would essentially get a time-resolved optimal speed. Yeah. You mean directly to the crew? No, we don't do that. We just give the recommendation for the optimal speed. Then we could do a post-analysis and seeing this is actually something we could do, but at the moment we're not doing it. You mean comparing the actual speed and the actual performance with the optimum and give like a fuel consumption? No, we're not displaying that at the moment, no. What we do is that we take the route from A to B, discretize it in like a million different pieces, and well, a million, no. We resolve it in time intervals, like 1.5 hour bits, and then we know the ETA, so that's fixed. You have to arrive at the next port at a certain time, and we know the distance, and we know the weather forecast and the ocean forecast, and then we have the predictive model that for each and every one of those 1.5 hour intervals, we can estimate what the fuel consumption will be for the given speed that we're evaluating, so to speak. Then we run that model calls like 8 million times and do an optimization on those. Okay, I think we are out of time. All right.
Give Skúli a round of applause again.
Thank you.